Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing? Welcome to Beyond the Brand, Moments That Made Us. This is the space where we talk about personal branding. We tell stories about brands. We also get to listen and to hear stories about powerful brands. When you look at a brand, what do you see? Because I know what most people see. You know those brands that you admire and love? Most people only see the glamour, the power, the success, the money. And these are the things I like to call the tip of the iceberg, the beautiful things. What most people don't see is the work that goes on behind a brand becoming successful. And these are things like sweat and blood and fear sometimes and rejection, a lot of no's, early mornings, late nights, strategic decisions that needed to be made. All those things are the things that I like to call the stuff beneath the iceberg. I know for sure that when you're starting to brand yourself, there are some things that you could do that can mess your whole branding journey. And if you don't catch them early, then you're going to start on the wrong note. In this conversation, I want to really just talk about mistakes that a brand can make when they are starting. So what are the 5 biggest mistakes I know for sure you must avoid as a beginner? Number 1, please do not brand without clarity. If you brand without clarity, it's like starting a journey, not really knowing where you're going, but you're just flowing and coasting through life. You're like, okay, I'm going to start selling shoes. Shoes it is. Tomorrow you decide, the shoe market is not very good. Now I'm going to start selling clothes. Before long, your friend is selling real estate. And you think, that's where the money is because they look like they're driving a good car. And then before you've even started selling real estate, before you sold your first house, you decide, now people are farming avocado back in the village and I think it's making a lot of money. Let me go and become a farmer. If you start your branding journey without clarity, you will get very confused. There's something else. Even more than just getting confused, you will never know what worked and what didn't work because you are all over the place. Guess what else? You do not know yourself. You're not clear about your strengths. You're not clear about what you value, your non-negotiables, your core values. And that means you're going to be thrown around. Wherever people need you, you go. Wherever people are making money, you go. You don't have clarity. Guess what else? It's going to cost you, and sometimes it costs you a lot of money and time because you're moving from here, you're going to here. You can never become a master of anything. You're not growing. Looks like you're not learning. You're not getting feedback. You're not really in it long enough. You're not doing time. It's called doing time. You're not doing time long enough to know if something worked or it didn't work. And if you begin without clarity, these are the problems that you're going to start bringing on yourself. So mistake number 1 to avoid is starting on your branding journey without clarity. And whenever people come to me for coaching, we actually spend a lot of time on that first part of clarity, the first part of self-discovery, the first part of who are you, the person and the purpose. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? What are your strengths? What are your skills? What do you need another person to come and help you with? What are your gifts? What are your interests? Where do you feel at a happy place? Where do you feel like you're at home? What are your core values even? What are your interests? What is your nature? What products do you like? What experience do you have? What are your skills? We start from there because that is the foundation. And you all know, if you start on a shaky foundation, the house will not stand. Number one mistake you want to avoid is branding without clarity. Number 2 mistake you want to avoid when you're starting in your branding journey is inconsistent presence. What does that mean? Today you show up, tomorrow you don't. Today you talk about this thing, tomorrow you decide you're going to do something totally different. Inconsistency is the thing that kills a lot of young brands. You don't even know. You haven't tested it. And all of a sudden, you've done this, now you've moved to this other one. And by the way, just to caution you, or to maybe to encourage you, consistency does not necessarily look like doing the same way, the same level every day. That can become robotic and machine-like, so you don't want that. You don't want, I saw an analogy and I saw consistency does not look like having a full cup every single day. No, consistency looks like doing something today. If today you're going to put in 2, tomorrow you're going to probably put in 3. The next day you probably put in half. The other day you put in 8. It doesn't have to be the same every single day because you're a human being and sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're tired. But again, I like to say personal branding is not for lazy people. So mistake number 2 to avoid is please do not have an inconsistent presence. What does that mean also? Do not be one person today and another person tomorrow. That's what happens. You present yourself as a real estate seller today and before people get to know you as an insurance agent, suddenly you're doing real estate. Suddenly you're selling clothes. So they don't even know. By the way, let me tell you a very funny story. There's a time I worked with somebody and in a certain project, and they were telling me how sometimes they're afraid to introduce themselves because they have gone to different audiences, and sometimes they say, this is Pauline, and someone will say, Pauline, the one who does cake, and the other person says, no, not Pauline, the one who does cake, Pauline, the one who sells real estate. Okay. Pauline, which one again? So because Pauline has very many brands, people know her as so many people that she's one person, but people know her as 5 different things, that you start looking like a fraud. You don't want that. So as a beginner, as you start branding yourself, please make sure you are consistent. Sometimes do it for 6 months, do it for 1 year. See what happens first before you jump onto something else. And before you add other things, just let this one just marinate a little bit. Let it cook a little bit so that people now buy into it. And then now you start increasing in small doses. You start evolving. You can change, you can tweak here and there, but don't change it yet if you really have not gotten that message out to the people. You will confuse your audience a lot. And also it's the fastest way that your brand can die even before it begins. Mistake number 3 that you want to avoid in personal branding as you begin is copying others. Copying others instead of communicating uniqueness. I get it. Sometimes you see people doing things on social media and you're thinking, I can do that too. And you go and decide you want to copy them. I'm not talking about somebody maybe inspiring you to do something. Copying somebody without bringing in your originality. There's a book that says you were born an original, don't become a copy. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you copy people, you're missing out on something. You're missing out on getting to know who is Hannah? What is the uniqueness of Hannah? You're missing out on that. You're missing out on the authenticity that could come from your brand because you're busy copying other people. Trust me. I've had coaches who've told me that people have copied their material. You find that somebody has gone and copied their whole workbook. Sometimes they even forget to remove the very personal stories that the coach told in the book. Because one coach came and decided, I don't want all the work. I'm just going to copy this other person because it is working. It is working for them because of how they are doing it. Will it work for you if you borrow it and copy it and just copy paste? That's not good. You actually become a fraud. And that is why you hear people saying imposter syndrome, because probably what you're doing is not really yours. You're an imposter. The mistake you want to avoid as a beginner, please, is copying others without communicating your uniqueness. What is personal branding? Identifying your uniqueness and then exploiting it in the service of other people. And then you must identify your uniqueness. And that's why we've said the very first mistake to avoid is to brand without clarity. Because if you're clear about what you want to communicate, you will have no need to copy other people. You can borrow from them. You can learn from them. You can ask for mentorship from them. You can get a few things that work and see how you can tweak them here and there. But if you copy them word for word, come on, you can never be them. There's only one person who is you. And I think that's your superpower. You should know that. There is only one person who is you, and that is your superpower. So you use that superpower. Don't go copying other people. That's a big, big mistake that's going to kill your brand even before it starts. Mistake number 4, confusing personal branding with your personal life exposure. Please don't do that. And I know when we talk about personal branding, there's a lot about telling stories, and I talk about that a lot. There's a lot about telling your raw stories, and I talk about that a lot. There's a lot about vulnerability, and I also talk about that a lot. I say, as a personal brand, you have 3 types of stories. You have your love story, your backstory, your gap story. All these are important stories for a brand. And so you must connect with the humans. You must connect with your audience by telling them stories about why you're very passionate about your thing, about why you started, about the problem you're solving. You use stories. And so I really do encourage people to be vulnerable with their personal stories. But I also like to caution people and say vulnerability is not about broadcasting. So when you hear about personal branding, don't think, oh, it's my time to go and expose my whole life experience on social media. No, there are some things that must be left hidden. They're secret, they're sacred, and they're beautiful that way. And so we're not telling you to go out there and broadcast and tell everything, all your dirty linen, to clean it in public. That's not what we're saying. You want to tell stories, but you want to know what stories are for who. I want you not to make that mistake as a beginner, to think that personal branding is about exposing your life. It's not. Don't confuse. Yes, it's about you being authentic. It's about you telling stories. It's about you connecting with the audience, but it is not about broadcasting your entire life in front of people. Even if you're telling them a story that could heal them, there's still some things that are not for exposure, because sometimes you find that it could actually work against you as a personal brand. It could actually work against your company if you go out there exposing everything. So there's some wisdom that needs to be applied there. How about the 5th mistake? The other mistake that you want to avoid as a beginner in your personal branding journey is the one of not tracking and refining. What does that mean? You're just doing this product, putting it out there, saying this message, putting out there, but you're not going back to check. How did the message do? What did the message do? How did it affect people? Did it inspire people? Did it get people to taking action? Did it compel people in one way or another? Did it entertain people? What exactly did the message do? This is what we call feedback. As you start on your branding journey, can you ask for feedback? Sometimes just verbally and saying, hey, what do you think about this? What did you think about this? What do you think about our product? That's how you see people before they launch a product, they send it out to a few people. Before I released my book 5 years ago, Flaunt Your Genius, I had to send it out to some people to read. So they gave me feedback. Before I released it to the public, they gave me feedback. And with that feedback, I was able to improve the book or not, because feedback is data. Again, you're able to refine your message better when you hear what people are saying. And that's why when people are launching a product, sometimes they call a small group of people. They give the product to them, and then they see how did it go with them. How did they feel about it? How did it land with them? And then now they're able to open it up to the public. That's the same thing with your brand. As you refine your message and then you get it out there, get to know what are people saying. And by the way, even if you're not asking for that feedback, just go back to the post you did and see how people are engaging with it or not, right? See what somebody said or what they didn't say. See that reaction. Sometimes the reaction could be negative, or it could be positive. Take the negative, look at it and say, oh, did they make any sense? Go back to your message, see if you can do something better. Of course, there are those that are hateful comments and all that. I'm not talking about those, but even the hateful ones, what are you going to do about them? But it is important for you to not avoid tracking and refining. The number one mistake that a lot of brands make, they just keep going. They go. They post today, they go. They talk about it today, they just move on. They launch a product, they go. They don't even want to know how people felt about it. So again, do not make that mistake. That's what I wanted to have a conversation with you today, because as people are beginning to really get interested in this topic of personal branding, there's a lot of questions they ask me. And one of the questions was, what can I avoid? And I thought putting together 5 mistakes that you want to avoid as a beginner in your personal branding journey. You want to avoid branding without clarity. You want to avoid inconsistent presence. As you build your brand, you want to avoid copying other people instead of communicating your uniqueness. The other thing you want to avoid is confusing personal branding with your life exposure. And then lastly, you want to avoid not tracking and refining your message. This has been Beyond the Brand, Moments That Made Us with Hannah G.